Welcome to the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, joined as always by the head coach, Marcus Freeman. Coach, great win on Saturday against Syracuse. You went on the road into a hostile environment. You led early. You never trailed. What was your takeaway from the win?
It was good to see at points of that game, all three phases truly execute. The ability to run the ball for 240-something yards and stop an explosive offense and prevent them from running for more than, I think, 70 yards. It was really good to see to block another punt. And all three phases played really well at points in that game. And it was a complete ball game from this football team.
You guys have responded really well since the loss against Stanford, back-to-back wins where you really asserted your will. You have 1 month left in the season. What's the confidence like going into this final month?
I think that's what winning does for you. Winning helps your confidence and helps your belief in what we're doing. But the challenge will be consistently to improve, constantly to improve. And that's the challenge when you're having success in these past two games, is still continue to look to find ways to improve and not just do the same things over and over. And so that'll be the message moving forward, and that's what we look to see.
Coach, appreciate it. We'll step aside, and when we come back, we'll break down the entire victory over Syracuse on the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. Welcome back to the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's game breakdown. Coach, you knew you were going into a tough building. Obviously, the Dome gets very loud. A noon kick in front of a national audience. I'm just curious, as you got set to take the field, what was the message to your team before you guys ran out?
Well, I think, as you said, this was my first, and many of the guys here in this program, first opportunity to go to the Dome there in Syracuse. And we knew it could be loud, but I told them we control the volume, with our execution. And if we continue to do the things that's necessary, the volume won't be a factor. And so I wanted to keep saying controlled aggression. Like, you're going to have to be aggressive on defense, but the ability for them to have multiple different ways to attack you, we had to be under control. Offensively, they did a lot of different things defensively with movement and stunts, so we had to be under control, but controlled aggression. We still want to be on attack, and we were able to accomplish that.
Hard to imagine a better start to a game when you go on the road into that kind of environment. Pick 6 on the first play of the game from Brandon Joseph. We're going to get a chance to look at it later in Irish Intel, but just tell me what happened on the play and then how big of a boost that was for the sideline right off the bat.
It was big. We wanted to come with a little bit of pressure to start the game, and that was one of our pressures. And we kind of changed up a little bit in terms of coverage and where we're coming down to the field or to the boundary. And, Brandon was in a perfect position, but then you got to make the play. He made the play and made a cut or two to score, and wasn't too happy with the celebration afterwards. You never want to hurt your football team, but it was a great moment and a great start to the game.
What are you seeing from the offensive line right now? Because they seem to be really consistent. They're obviously performing really well, but they seem to be getting better every single week with Coach Heastand. It just seems like a unit that you can rely on, and anytime you want now, if you want to call run play, you have to have a ton of confidence going to the ground.
Yeah, it starts with cohesiveness, and those guys really being able to depend on each other and knowing, hey, here's the calls we're going to make, here's the double teams we're going to have, and coming off, all those little things matter. And it starts with making sure that everybody's on the same page, those 5 guys up front. But they're playing well, they're playing physical, they're ultra talented, and they're playing to their capabilities. And we're running the ball hard. We've got some good running backs, and that's helping everything. And so it's been very productive for us.
14-7 after you get that touchdown. I want to talk about a couple plays on defense that might not show up in the stat sheet, but they're really impactful. The first one, and it's a guy you actually talked about in your press conference this week, J.D. Bertrand. He blew up a screen on a 3rd down and 7, I think. He's getting even better every week, it seems like. I know he's a big leader on this team. I heard you talk about how he maximizes all of his potential. Just what kind of leader is he? And then maybe elaborate on that. Like, what does he do that allows him to maximize the full potential that he has?
I think the type of leader he is he's what you want. He's a vocal and a leader by example. He does it all, right? He holds other people accountable, but he holds himself accountable. And he makes sure he's doing the things right first. And so he makes other people better. And that's what you love about J.D. Bertrand. But he's a guy that will work tirelessly at improving at his craft. He studies, he takes care of his body, he gets proper amount of rest and nutrition, and again, he is a guy that maximizes every ounce of ability that he has, and it's been great to see now that he's able to play a couple full games under his belt. It's been great to see the production that he's came up with.
We talk about Michael Mayer every week, and I was thinking we're going to have to start, I guess, talking about special teams every week, because it was the 3rd straight week with a blocked punt. You've got 4 blocked punts in the last 3 games combined. I heard you talking today again about Coach Mason, who we talked about last week, the way he's got them playing on specials. But again, You guys had a 2-touchdown lead. I know you're getting the ball back, but to block it and then put the ball inside the 2, if the nail in the coffin was the drive before, that was, I guess, putting the coffin in the dirt. I mean, it just seemed like what a way to kind of wrap up this game. Special teams, just tell me what it's like when you have that weapon. They truly are now changing games, it seems like, every week for you guys.
Yeah, it took a while for us to get close enough to get our hands on it, but that's because of a respect of what they've done the past couple of weeks. They changed their protection, and we knew teams are gonna start changing up the way they protect. And so the ability for us to go communicate and adjust on the sideline and be able to attack different punt units in different ways is so important. And that's what happened. Is what you saw as the course of the game. We kind of got closer and closer, and then that last one, Lugg came off the edge, and it's a technique deal. Very similar early in the game. Lugg was a little bit late and coming off the ball, and I know him and Coach Mace got together on the sideline, just talked about the technique, the ability to make sure there's no false steps. You get off on the ball and you cut every angle that you can, and that was the result of it. And so it's great to see, and it's credit to Coach Mace in that unit.
Leads to another touchdown. Like we said, at that point, you're up 3 scores, and you guys end up getting it done. In the locker room, I want to know what it's like after that win, because now you're back to 5-3. You bounced back well the last couple games. You still got 4 games left to go. So what was the message in the locker room after the win?
Well, one, enjoy it. You know, it's really hard to win, and for us to beat a great team like that, a great opponent, man, we have to enjoy that moment. But understand that, you know what, we're a good football team, and I've said that before, and understand they have to have confidence in themselves and that we can beat anybody we play as long as we play up to our standard. And so, you know, we have to make sure we single out a couple guys, and that's something that we do after every game. But let's enjoy this thing. Let's get home, enjoy tonight, and then get ready to prepare for a great Clemson team we got coming up.
Coach, appreciate it. We'll step aside and come back with more on the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. So Josh, you guys got the win over Syracuse on the road, hostile environment, great performance from you guys. Just what was the biggest factor in the win on Saturday?
Biggest factor is just using our strength of playing together, especially on the offensive line when you have all 5 guys up there communicating and seeing things through one set of eyes. It allows our team to have greater success. And we did that on Saturday. We went in there, we were able to communicate with one another in a loud environment and make sure that we got our job done.
You guys ran the ball a ton, and you guys have been running it really effectively as of late. Just tell me, as an offensive lineman, when you hear a run play called so often, what kind of confidence does that give you guys in the unit to move the ball up front?
Yeah, we get a lot of confidence when a run play is called, especially in a game like last where we have 51 run plays. And we know that the offensive coordinator trusts in us and believes in us. And it's something that we've been trying to instill in our season's performances, game by game, week by week. It's really a great feeling when you know, and the defense knows, and everybody in the stadium knows that you're going to run the ball, and you have that belief and desire in you to execute. And then you go and you pick up Audric or Logan or Chris, and they have the biggest smile on their face because they just converted an obvious run situation.
Last 2 weeks, I actually talked to Logan and Audric, and you mentioned Chris. You got 3 really talented backs behind you guys. They've been obviously really complimentary of the way you guys have been blocking, but just tell me what it's like when you have dynamic running backs behind you that you know are going to hit those holes you guys create for them.
Yeah, when you have a dynamic running back trio like we have that a lot of teams don't have, it's hard for other defenses to prepare, and it allows us to have some versatility in how we want to attack that defense. So it gives us the options to be able to do some outside zone, inside zone, mix up based off different box alignments, and really attack. And those guys run hard. They each have their own different style of running, but they're very fundamentally sound, and they know that when they give us the time to execute the blocks, that they'll be able to convert.
Tell me what the impact of this place has been as you reflect upon your time here as it comes to a close. Just what comes to mind when you think about Notre Dame?
Yeah, this place is an honor to me. To be here for 6 years, working on my 2nd degree now to be a double-domer. It's really special. This campus, the energy around it for my 6 years has been unbelievable. I feel like each game here at home, the energy around campus gets even better. The walks to the stadium on game day just keep getting better and better. And then my network that I've built here at Notre Dame is truly special. You know, Notre Dame is known, 1, for its academics, but 2, for the people here and how much they care about helping other people. And that started from when I was in Duncan Hall, freshman, sophomore year, to now living off campus, doing things in the community, working with different professors and those alumni of Notre Dame.
You've got a chance to create some more going forward, but I just want to ask, as you think back, what's maybe the one memory that comes to mind that sticks out in your head in your time here?
One of the greatest memories for me was when we beat Clemson here. And that year, we were working through COVID college football. And so many people sacrificed their time and their efforts, and honestly their health. And for us to all come together in that game in a stadium that wasn't 100% capacity, but those fans were the loudest I'd ever heard them, and get that win on national television, it was truly something special, and it was, I think, something that we can all cherish, because it was the totality of everybody sacrificing for one common goal and achieving that together.
It's almost the 2-year anniversary of that game this week, and Clemson is coming back. It's obviously the game I think a lot of people have had circled on the calendar throughout the entire year. Now that it's here, and now that you guys are rolling in the right direction, just what's the mindset, what's the focus, and what's going to be the biggest key to get the win on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the mindset and focus is the same as it is every week, to constantly improve and practice. You know, today is our off day, but we have the opportunity to go in and watch film together or get a little bit of treatment. And if we treat each Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday every week, just like we have before, then we're going to see that improvement so we can have success on Saturday. Clemson, we have to treat as a faceless opponent, just like every other opponent, and understand that if we're at our best, when our best is needed, we'll be successful.
Josh, appreciate the time and best of luck this week. When we come back, we'll go inside the play with Irish Intel on the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's edition of Irish Intel, where we go inside the play. Coach, hard to not pick this one. First play of the game, pick 6. Brandon Joseph gets you on the board right away. Tell me what you guys were trying to do on this first play schematically and how it all played out.
Well, we wanted to make sure we brought pressure, and a pressure in terms of it can be a run or pass pressure, you know, and certain pressures are run pressure, certain pressures are pass pressure. This was one that should be good against the run and the pass, and the ability to take away their free access. What does that mean is the quick throws. And Brandon Joseph comes down to the number 3 receiver. He gets in the throwing lane, and the pressure makes the quarterback throw it, right? The quarterback does it. If he could hold it, now he'll make a better decision, but he can feel Chris Smith right here ready to come at him. He didn't know what to do with it, and he throws it, and throws it right to Brandon Joseph, and we make the play.
All right, Coach, this is in the second quarter, but I thought a really big play that gets your defense off the field. J.D. Bertrand, linebacker, reads this screen and just blows it up on impact.
Yeah. Well, what you see here is we try to align in man coverage our guys that have certain guys in man, different positions. JD actually has the running back here in man coverage, but we're trying to get the protection to be a certain way. We're trying to get the offensive line to protect in a certain way, and then JD will come out and pop out and take the back man to man. And so we do a good job of understanding that, hey, I have this back man to man, but I'm also trying to get 63 to make sure that he occupies me, and now I can get to my man and make the play.
So is that something JD reads when they come out in their formation? He's going to try to basically take the attention of the right guard there to make him commit to him, but the whole time he knows he's going after Tucker 34?
100%.
Wow.
You're starting to learn all the secrets.
To submit my application for your staff at the end of the year. All right, Coach, thought this was a huge play to get you guys in scoring position here at the end of the second quarter. Michael Mayer, you're going to see him in the slot here. He's going to end up getting open downfield, but explain to me how he does so, because I know some other guys are taking attention away from him.
Yeah, we knew we were getting man-to-man coverage here, and anytime we can get man-to-man coverage, we're going to probably throw the ball to 87, and he runs a great route. The guy that's covering man actually has outside leverage, but Mayer does a great job, what we say, stepping on his toes and breaking his leverage. We know that if you can break his leverage, now you're free, and so Mayer runs a great route here. He steps on that defender's toes. He still breaks his leverage, and Drew throws a really good ball, and Mayer makes a great play.
So, Coach, this is the touchdown that puts you up 2 scores. You called it the nail in the coffin. This is really where I think your run game is shining through. The offensive line gives Audric Estime a chance to just run right into the end zone.
Yeah, we're going to try to see how many guys we can get as close to the ball as we can with this formation. But, we're trying to create extra gaps. And that's what you do when you put those extra tight ends in the game. You even bring JT, who's a wideout, down to create an extra edge. And so you'll see some double teams here. When you hit those double teams, now you create a little bit of movement. Now that double team can go up to a backer. And that's what you see here with Blake Fisher and Josh Lugg. They double team that defensive lineman, get up to the backer, which creates a huge hole here. And Audric's able to hit the hole and score 6.
When we come back, we'll have more on this week's edition of the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. Welcome back to the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by the experts at TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's Look Ahead, where we highlight Notre Dame's upcoming opponent. It's now time for this week's Look Ahead segment, and as always, we're joined by Bill Reese. Bill, appreciate you taking the time to join us as always. Hard to imagine a better start for Notre Dame in this game against Syracuse. They go on the road into a hostile environment and quiet the crowd right away with a pick 6 on the first play of the game from Brandon Joseph. Just how big and how impactful of a play was that to begin the game in such an electric way?
It was extremely impactful, and Brandon Joseph has great ball skills. He really anticipates things very well. He broke on the ball, took it back into the end zone for a touchdown, and before it was 7-0, and it was a great way to start.
The offensive side of the ball has just been, really committed to the run at this point. You look at Audric Estime, Logan Diggs, each get 20 carries in this game. Chris Tyree also in the mix as well. I believe there were over 50 called running plays in the contest. And to see the way that specifically Audric bounced back from a week where he only carried it 3 times after a fumble, how impressive was it the way that he bounced back to give the performance he did on the road against Syracuse?
Well, Audric is a very intense competitor. He's a perfectionist. He wants to do everything the right way. But he also wants to run with power. He wants to run with strength and finish blocks off aggressively or runs off aggressively. And, to be honest with you, it's just something that was emphasized more during the week. Coach McCullough just did a lot of different things to emphasize it. You've got to hang on to the ball. And, I don't see that being an issue as we go forward because Audric is very conscientious and he wants as many carries as he can get. And if you don't fumble, you're going to get that.
The guest on the show this week was 6th-year man Josh Lugg. And I bring him up because the offensive line, Audric and Logan are obviously great backs, but man, they have great holes to run through right now. It seems like they're getting a great push up front. That unit is really cohesive now. And I know, of course, everyone's excited that Coach Harry Hiestand is back. Just from your vantage point, this line seems to have been getting better every single week. This may be one of their most impressive performances that we've seen this year. Just what are they doing up front that's making it so valuable for the running game right now?
Well, cohesive is probably the right word to use. It's a group now that's had 8 games under its belt. They played together against a lot of different fronts, a lot of different looks. It's a good combination of young players. And, as you mentioned, Josh is in his 6th year. So, they just really come together, and there's not a better teacher in the country of offensive line play than Harry. And, they've really, done a great job of doing what he asks and using the techniques. It's a really bright part of our team.
The passing game, of course, there were only 9 completions in this game. But one thing that I thought was encouraging was the ball wasn't just going to Michael Mayer. Obviously, he was a target, but Deion Colzie saw him for the first time, made an impact. And what I've liked, at least, even though maybe the big performance on the outside hasn't quite been there yet, every week it seems like there's a different name I can bring up, Bill. It was Jaden Thomas a couple weeks back, and then Tobias Merriweather. We all know Lorenzo Styles has the ability to make plays. Now you get Deion Colzie back in the mix. How great was it first to just see him back out there making some plays? But then also now it looks like you've got a few different weapons that any given week someone could step up and make the big catch on the offensive side of the ball.
It was really great to see Deion, and he made some catches at clutch times during the game. He played as a true freshman last year. He's had some injuries, some just bad luck, and now he's really gotten back into a really good, frame of mind. He's healthy. He's really going to help us down the stretch. And that room is just getting deeper. And the more depth that's there, the more we can run guys in and out, the more confidence Coach Stuckey has with, his entire group. And, the group is really coming along. And those 3 young guys really have shown in practice that they're maturing and they're, getting ready to play on the big stage.
Something I've talked to Coach Freeman about throughout the year, and I think it was another positive again this week, is how the team tries to win the middle 8 minutes of the game. And oftentimes a big part of that is really the first 4 of that middle 8, the end of the first half. Notre Dame had the ball coming out in the second. I just thought the way Notre Dame ended the half was phenomenal. Getting that 4th down stop to get the ball back, have a shorter field. They hit the big play to Mayer, manage the clock well. So Thomas scores with about 20 seconds left to take the 2-score lead and then have the ball coming out. To me, that just seemed like great execution by both the defense to get the ball back and then the offense to manage the clock well. How big was that for the team going into halftime?
Well, it was really big that the defense got the ball back for us there on that 4th down and a 4th down stop. And because that would have given Syracuse a chance to score if they pick up that first down. Instead, we get the ball back. It was probably as good a series as we had. Drew was on point in that series, makes a really nice throw, to Michael Mayer down the sideline. And one thing that Drew did a really nice job of doing was avoiding the rush, resetting his feet, and getting the ball down the field. He hit Michael again on the next play, and then once we got down to the goal line, we ran a real effective play action pass that, quite honestly, they really hadn't practiced. They had talked about it, they had walked through it, and said, if we get down there, we might want to call it. And hats off to the offense and Jaden Thomas. They ran the perfect route. It was blocked perfectly, and resulted in a touchdown.
I think about a month ago, we were talking, Bill, about how through maybe 3 games, Notre Dame hadn't taken the ball away. And then in this game, of course, we talked about Brandon Joseph makes the pick that goes for 6. He had another pick that was taken off the board because of an offside call. But I thought maybe the biggest play of the game was when Syracuse was making that push and they had the dome back alive a little bit. They cut the 17-point lead down to 7, had a chance to tie. Howard Cross gets his hand up. Maris Leofau does a great job, I thought, on the replay. You could see just how his ability to remain focused on the ball when it was tipped was phenomenal. And then he makes the interception. Short field leads to points. To me, that was the play of the game. And the defense getting that takeaway feels like ages ago now. We were talking about them struggling to take it away. They're now changing the game with takeaways, aren't they?
They are. And, they come in bunches. And it's really over a 12-game season that, you're going to get yours. And for whatever reason, the ball just hasn't bounced our way early on in the season with turnovers. But, now you're starting to see, people getting their hands on the ball. They're ripping the ball out. They're making interceptions. It's going to continue. And it's just the law of averages. Eventually, you're going to get those because it is emphasized every day in practice. Every technique, every time a ball carrier is running through the line of scrimmage is to get the ball out.
Last one I have before we move on to focusing on Clemson is special teams. I mean, we have to talk about the fact that it's the 3rd straight week that Notre Dame has blocked a punt. They've blocked 4 punts in the last 3 weeks. Coach Freeman talked about Brian Mason in his press conference today, highlighting him, of course, because that unit has been so good recently. What they're doing right now is when you can win the 3rd phase the way they're winning it, it's a totally new dynamic, at least it feels like to me. The fact they block the kick, almost score on it. It's right there on the goal line for the offense to punch in. When special teams is making plays like this, how demoralizing is it for the opposition to know that the deck is really stacked against you when they're going to be able to block any kick you might have to tee up?
Well, I'm not sure many teams are going to want to punt now. They're going to want to go for it on 4th down. They're just very aggressive in their approach, and that comes from Coach Mason. But they're also, very strategical on how they're going to do it, how they're going to, attack the different protections and those types of things. And they have a really good plan, and he inserts, the players that are going to, make the plays. And, it's been really good, whether, it's been Foskey or Colley, whoever it is. And then it was, who was it?
Clarence Lewis this week.
Clarence Lewis got it on Saturday. So, all these guys have stepped up and done a really good job.
I think the other part, too, that's really impressive is no penalties on any of these kick blocks either throughout the season. So they're able to be aggressive without possibly setting the team back. Let's move to Clemson, because obviously when the schedule comes out, this is a game that's going to be circled on the calendar. And they come in maybe, as most people at least expected, maybe some hoped, undefeated. So Notre Dame has a chance to obviously potentially spoil some of their postseason hopes. Clemson is always an excellent team. They come in with a great head coach. They come in with the pedigree. Just in general, you get a chance now for Notre Dame fans to see the game they couldn't necessarily see unless they were a student 2 years ago. Where's the excitement level at when a team like Clemson comes to your house?
Well, it's obviously going to be a big game. They're a great opponent. They might have the best roster or one of the best rosters in college football on both sides of the ball. So it's a great challenge for us. It's another good measuring stick of where we're at and how we're playing. And we look forward to the matchup by all means. So, it'll be fun on Saturday night.
Let's talk about the offensive side of the ball. Notre Dame fans, maybe more than anybody, are familiar with DJ Uyunglele from a couple years back when he had to fill in for Trevor Lawrence, and maybe to date had his best performance considering the circumstances back then. He's been the starter throughout the year. I think at least notably coming into this game, he was replaced by a really talented quarterback in Cole Klubnik, who came in relief because he wasn't having his best game. So I guess the first question is, what does each quarterback bring to the table, and does Notre Dame have to prepare for both in case they see them on Saturday?
Well, DJ's really having a good year, and I think, people we'll talk about, hey, he didn't have his best day against Syracuse, and Dabo decided, hey, I'm going to make a change here to give us a spark, and it worked against Syracuse. But DJ's had a really good year. He's very improved from where he was a year ago. Can make all the throws. He's a big, strong runner. He takes what the defense gives you. He can, put the ball deep to any point on the field. So his percentage is good. I think if you just take out the Syracuse game, you look and say, this guy's had a really, really good year, and he's a really good quarterback. Klubnik is, their quarterback of the future. And I think they wanted to get him in there, to get him some experience. He's very athletic. He can run around a little bit. He's a little bit more of a guy that, will take off and run and get outside the pocket. But you can see that he's got really good ability, both as a runner and a passer. Just doesn't have the experience right now that DJ has. So, they're coming off a bye, so I'm sure they both got plenty of work. So we'll just have to wait and see what Saturday night holds.
On the other side of the ball, Bill, I've heard for really 2 months now that Clemson's defensive line is one of the best you'll ever see. And I know that's where they bring in a lot of talent. We just talked about how great Notre Dame's offensive line has been throughout the year. So I think from my vantage point, that's going to be a great matchup to monitor. But specifically, when you dig into them a little bit, what does Notre Dame have to be wary of when it comes to that defensive line first, and just defensively the challenges they present? Because I know that's a part of their game they really hang their hat on.
Well, it's really their entire front seven. When you take into account the defensive ends, the defensive tackles, and then their linebacking core, it's an extremely talented front seven. And, they've got speed on the edges, with Henry and Murphy. Both guys played against us back in 2020. They're big, tall, athletic edge rushers. And then inside, they got Breesy and Davis, who are, Breesy is, 6'5", and Davis is 6'2". And, as a pair, I don't know if they're two better defensive tackles in the country. And then behind them at linebacker, they got Simpson, Carter, and Trotter that, will, they really don't have to come off the field. They're that athletic and experienced. So it's their front seven that really complements, what they're doing. And, that's, the biggest challenge that we'll have is getting those guys blocked.
Bill, the last one I have is just to maybe take a step back. And I know there's a job to do this week, and the goal is to win the game and beat Clemson. But I think about the fact that 2 years ago, there were no fans in the stands except for the students when this awesome matchup came in. I know Notre Dame wishes that they were also maybe undefeated or even 7-1 after that Ohio State game, but still to get a top 5 team in prime time in Notre Dame Stadium, it's going to be a packed house and great environment. These opportunities, even though they come around at Notre Dame maybe more often than the average place, they still don't come around all that often. So what's your mindset going into this week, and how excited are you just to be a part of such a great matchup?
Well, it's exciting because it is unique to Notre Dame. And this is why the players come to Notre Dame. This is why the coaches want to coach at Notre Dame. Is to play in games like this. And, it's going to be, a great opportunity for our team. It's going to be a great opportunity for our fans to really get behind the team and, really give us a home field advantage so that, we play the best game that we're capable of playing.
Well, Bill, as always, appreciate the time. Enjoy the game this weekend, and we will talk to you next week.
Tony, thanks. Talk to you soon.
We now
Coach,
present the highlights from a recent
obviously
Coach
a season
Freeman
of
press
first for
conference.
you, including having to deal with some weather conditions this Saturday. How does that impact your game plan offensively, defensively, and special teams wise?
I just think you just got to be aware of it and understand that you got a certain plan that you have when you're going with the wind, and depending on how strong the wind is, you got to have another plan when you're going against the wind. Defensively, you got to be ready for shots when the offense has the wind, and offensively, you got to be ready to take some shots with the wind. Special teams wise, the same thing. Understanding if you're kicking to the wind or kicking against the wind, kicking with the wind or against the wind. So again, it's just having a plan to utilize the wind or understand that, hey, the opponent has the wind or we're going against the wind.
Next question will be from Sean Stiers.
Hey, Marcus, this is kind of the rare game in that both teams are in the top 5 in the nation in terms of blocking kicks this season. I'm just curious, when you going up against an opponent like that, you're obviously adept at getting to them yourself. Do you spend extra time, or how do you spend extra time maybe during the week looking at some things?
You just want to make sure your protection's solid, and each week we're always a protect first team, no matter if it's punt or kicking a field goal, you have to protect first, and then obviously cover if it's a punt kick. And then if it's a long field goal, you got to be ready to cover too. So, just it's about being sound, playing sound football and protecting, your kicker and making sure your protection is right. And so it comes down to scheme and fundamentals and execution. So that's really it.
Next question will be from Eric Hansen.
Hey, Marcus. I know that you made a change in terms of how you wanted to do your own mental performance. Amber Selking wasn't returned or retained. I'm wondering if you could explain maybe the structure of your plan, what that looks like, how players can access it.
We have resources for them to utilize here on campus, on an individual basis. And as far as, what we want our players thinking during the week and as they get ready for a game, it can be from the head coach or the position coach, and we're speaking similar messages. And, it's the things that I feel as the head coach they should be thinking about and what's important. But again, we have to make sure we have resources to serve these guys that if necessary, they feel like they need it. We have resources for them in terms of mental performance.
Next question will be from Pete Sampson.
Marcus, you may disagree with this. Feel free, but I think for this season, you've played up against better competition and maybe not played as well against lesser competition. Obviously, Clemson is in the greater group, but do you have a sense of why that's happened? If you think that's happened.
Yeah, I think, Pete, you can look at it a couple of different ways. And is it a home game? Is it a away game thing? Is it a opponent thing? What we got to do is focus on the things that it takes to play well. And no matter who the opponent is, we have to truly focus on what it takes to deserve victory, what it takes to really be able to execute throughout the entirety of a game. And we can't let the opponent dictate our ability to focus on that and our ability to execute. And so, unfortunately, if you look at, some of the previous losses and some of the poor performances that, have they been higher ranked teams? No. But as I tell our players, it's about continuing to improve, and it's about making sure this Saturday that we're performing at a high level, and that's all we really want to focus on.
Next question will be from Mike Berardino.
Hey, Marcus. We didn't ask about Gabe Rubio the other day, and I know his snap count, it looked like, was limited defensively at Syracuse. Is he okay health-wise, and what's he meant to his improvement in season meant to your defensive line?
Yeah, he's healthy. Didn't play as much as he had the previous probably 2 games, but Gabe is continuing to improve, and he's getting better and better. And we'll have a plan for him this game, and a lot of it's determined on maybe some of those guys that are in front of him in terms of how well they're playing, or if they need a break and get Gabe in there. But Gabe is continuing to improve, and he has such a bright future for this football team. And I'm excited about what Gabe Rubio will do, hopefully in this game and many games after.
Next question will be from Patrick Engel.
Marcus, going off of that, I know you'd mentioned a few weeks ago that Jason Anye had gotten pulled up from scout team. I'm curious what you've seen from him since then, or how close he might be, or what you're still hoping to see from him, or how close he might be to cracking the rotation or getting on the field a little bit.
Yeah, our D-line room is pretty deep, and there's some guys, some older guys that are playing well, that will continue to play well, that get the majority of playing time. But Jason Anye has really improved, and he's in a similar category as Gabe Rubio. Although he hasn't played much in the game, you see him continuously getting better and better in practice. And I don't know when the exact moment will be where he gets a whole bunch of playing time yet, but I know it's a process to get to that point. But he is getting better, and I'm excited about Jason Anye, and I'm excited about what he can bring to this team and this defense. And we will find the right time to get him on the field and to have him playing defense during games. But until that time is here, the challenge for him is continuing to improve, and you're seeing him do it, and he's doing a really good job.
Next question will be from Tyler Horka.
Marcus, obviously you can't talk about any of these guys specifically, but I'm just curious what this weekend means to you from a recruiting standpoint. Obviously there's going to be a ton of commits, a ton of prospective players that you might want to commit at this game, and primetime, sellout. It seems like it could be a spectacle from that regard.
Yeah, it's going to be a great environment. This is what I tell them. This is why you come to Notre Dame, and to be a part of games like this. And, the best thing we can do is put on a good performance, but for them to understand that this is what Notre Dame's about, you got a chance to be a part of this in this future, in this football program. And so it's a big weekend for us. Anytime you can get these kids on campus, it's important for us for them to experience this game day atmosphere. Because a lot of kids, a lot of the recruits now take official visits during the summer, and before they ever get a chance to experience what a game day is like here, especially in South Bend. And so we want all the kids that come here on campus to really experience to have a great experience, but also understand that this is what takes place at Notre Dame. And again, the other part of that is making sure that we put on a good performance for them, and we execute on the game field.
Next question will be from Tim O'Malley.
Hey, Coach, this is not Clemson game specific, but just game day Saturdays. What goes into your rotations defensively, especially where you play 5 safeties, 5 corners, maybe 9 defensive linemen? Is that a position coach kind of talking to Coach Golden and you as well to form a game day rotation? Or I'm just kind of wondering how that works out, how guys get more snaps some games and earn their time.
Yeah, we revisit it daily. I think we have a plan at the start of the week, and then we revisit it on Thursdays and Fridays in terms of, hey, we want to be able to roll guys. It's about keeping guys fresh, but at the same point, it's also being about earning those opportunities in practice. And, hey, who are the guys that have played well, but also have practiced well? And who are the guys that we feel can give us the best opportunities to succeed in different situations versus an offense too, in that, hey, this guy might be better versus the run. This guy might be better versus the pass. This guy might be better on third down. And so all those type of discussions go into, some of these decisions that ultimately will happen on game day. But it's a constant conversation, a constant evaluation in terms of practice, in terms of previous games, in terms of who you trust at the end of the day.
Next question will be from Chuck Freeby.
Marcus, Will Shipley was a player that Notre Dame wanted. They weren't alone in that. Clemson got him. When you watch Will Shipley run the football or just playing his position in general? What stands out about him?
I think he's an ultra competitive individual. I think he runs the ball hard. I think he's fast. I think he has good ball security. I know he lost the first fumble last week or 2 weeks ago versus Syracuse. He's a wide receiver threat. He looks extremely smart. He's great yards after contact. I can go on and on. I think he's a heck of a football player that obviously Notre Dame wanted before I got here, and you see why. He is a extremely talented football player.
The last call for questions here, guys. We'll go to Tim Priester next.
Coach, I know you weren't here 2 years ago, but there was a concern about Clemson stealing the signals, the offensive signals from the sideline. Is that something that Coach Reese has addressed with you, or is that probably more of a Brent Venables thing that went to Oklahoma?
That's a college football thing. I think competitive advantage is something that all teams will try to do. If you're going to let teams steal your signals, they'll do it. And so we have to every week have a plan for that, continue to switch signals, continue to switch who's live, and have a great plan in terms of how we're going to be able to communicate with the guys on the field, what we want them to do. And so that's every week. It's not a Clemson thing. That's an every week thing in terms of if you don't think it's real, then you're probably getting your signal stolen. And so you have to have a great plan for that.
We'll go back to Eric Hansen.
Hey, Coach, when Avery Davis got hurt, you not only wanted him around the program, you wanted him to be a leader. And I'm wondering, what impact has he actually had in 3/4 of the way through the season? And what does that kind of leadership look like on a week like this where he's played against Clemson, had a big game against them?
Yeah, I think it starts in the wideouts room, and he's in all those meetings, and the ability to communicate, with those guys in that room. Coaches sometimes only hear so much, and sometimes only are able to communicate so much, where sometimes players feel more comfortable talking with a peer of theirs. And so the ability for Avery to be an extension of Coach Stuckey and Coach Reese and our offensive staff and be able to answer questions and help the young guys perform at a higher level. As for me, I meet often with our captains, and obviously he's one of those captains that can give me the pulse of the team, that could be able to communicate with me ways to improve, things that we're doing well, things that we can change. And he's been a huge asset for our program, me specifically, and Coach Stuckey.
We'll go back to Pete Sampson.
Marcus, I was interested in sort of the red zone defense, getting back to your defensive coordinator days. Like, how much different of a call sheet or inventory do you have once you get down there? And what are the keys to being good at it as you guys sort of figure out how to create an uptick in that department for the defense?
Yeah, I think, Pete, the number one thing you do is you shrink your call sheet, right? When you get into the red zone, instead of having this long list of different calls that you can make defensively, you're going to shrink it down to a couple calls, and you're probably going to try to get more on-body coverage, right? There's less space, for the offense, and so you want to try to get on body with those guys and challenge every route you can. But you also probably have to have a zone. You have to have some type of change up of a zone, and then understand what they like to do in a red zone. For this game, there's going to be any opportunity Five can keep the ball in his hands, he will. So you have to have a plan to make sure that you have somebody extra for the quarterback so that he can't beat you by running the ball into the end zone. But at the same time, when you do that, you're also opening it up some more areas for them to throw the ball. So you got to shrink what you're doing. You got to make sure that your guys on defense have a plan and a thought process of what you think the offense is going to do. And then you got to make a play. And a lot of times in red zone, there are going to be some one-on-one situations where somebody's going to have to make a play, and you better know and believe that your guy will.
Final question this afternoon. We'll go back to Patrick Engel.
Marcus, if I can take you back to one red zone play from last weekend, the first Syracuse touchdown where Morrison was one-on-one with Gadsden. Curious if you can just kind of walk us through what the plan was there and kind of what ended up happening on that play.
Yeah. We ended up, we didn't know how much the quarterback would run last week, and we wanted to get an extra hat for the quarterback, usually where Ben would have had help on the inside there. And we ended up bailing him, which he was playing man coverage, but we bailed him. And again, if we could go back and do that and say, okay, quarterback was a little bit injured, probably don't need an extra hat for the quarterback. Now Ben has help. The other part of that, we got to play with better technique, and Ben knows that, and we've worked on it. But I think that was a twofold situation. We got to, we probably overthought it a little bit and having an extra hat for the quarterback, and Ben's got to play with better technique. But we definitely learned from that, and he learned from that. And, I expect him to be much better this week.
Welcome back to the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. Coach talked about it throughout the show, but the way you guys have responded here since the Stanford game has been really impressive. I just want to know, from your standpoint, what have you learned about this team over the course of the last 2 weeks?
They respond to being pushed. I think there's lessons that you learn after losses, and you never want to lose a game, but I think if you can find the ways to improve because of those losses, then they're not truly losses, right? That they help you continue to get better. And, I think it's just been great to see. Our challenge will be is how do we continually improve with wins? And that's the sign of a great football team, is that teams that can get better no matter what happens the week before, and that's what we got to do.
Huge week this week. It's 2 years really since Notre Dame last played Clemson. I know you weren't on that staff, but I heard you talk about the fact that you were watching that game, and everybody that's with Notre Dame remembers the big win over Clemson a couple years ago. They're coming in, obviously, undefeated. What's going to be the biggest key as you guys get prepared to take on a great Clemson team this week?
Yeah, I haven't truly dissected them as much as I want yet, but, it's still going to come down to our ability to take care of the football. We got to win the turnover margin. We got to be able to run the ball and stop the run. They're a physical unit, and they got a great defensive line and a really good offensive line that's going to present huge challenges for us. But, that and playing, execution, right, and situational football. All those little things matter when you play great teams, is that, the team that continues to execute and does those little things right will be the team that's victorious at the end.
Coach, appreciate it. Good luck this week. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, Tony, thank you.
That'll do it for this week's edition of the Marcus Freeman Show.